Welcome to All Things in the Name of Love. If you like this show, please like, subscribe, and share. Thanks. Welcome to another episode of All Things in the Name of Love. And if you can tell by my smile, Julie and I have been sharing stuff for a few minutes, and I'm trying to ground myself because we just soul sisters. Anyways, Julie Hilsen is one who shares her passion for living a life of magic and joy, and I can already feel that. Your debut book is a powerful tool for self-discovery. Thank you. And finding the joy in everyday life. She lives in Cumming, Georgia with her husband Mitch and her two sons, Reese and Blake. When she's not talking to angels and creating, you can find her hiking, playing tennis, or cooking. So, honey, we are soul sisters. We're soul sisters on so many levels. So thank you for joining me on this beautiful conversation.
Oh, Sophia, it's my absolute divine pleasure. I mean, I didn't put on my bio that I also talk to trees when I hike. So you told me that earlier, and I was like, oh yeah.
Because they love to talk.
Well, some of them, I found some
Yeah.
don't, but usually I talk.
Cedars, redwoods, and sequoias are very talkative to me.
Yeah.
Incredibly, like they'll just pull my energy. And I actually had a redwood have a conversation with me, and I was like, okay, that's a little trippy. But anyways,
Love it. I love it. Well, thanks for having me and thanks for that delightful introduction. I appreciate
you're
it.
so welcome. So I want to ask you, the first question is, how what what is my first question? Tell me about your spiritual journey a little bit.
Oh, girl, it was one of those, I was always spiritual, like connected fairies as a child. Like anytime I could escape to the woods and go on an exploration, that was my thing. That was my jive. And then, you go to college and you start checking boxes. And
Mhm.
that's what I did.
Mm.
And had strong, my maternal grandmother was amazing nature, Mother Gaia, soul, and we had a deep connection. And I guess what sparked it, literally sparked it, was she was on her deathbed. And I get a little emotional talking about this, and I don't always introduce my spirituality with this experience, but I was in Georgia. She was on her deathbed in Ohio, and I was like, I had two young kids, and I was like, no, I've got to go and be with dear Frances, and yeah, Frances, even that's her name. And so I'm with her, and it's toward the end, and we know it's getting toward the end. Hospice is there. Everyone's like, go home and go to bed. Well, I was jolted awake at 6:15 a.m. And my mom happened to live down the hill from my grandmother. And I've got to go. I don't even think I got dressed. I think I just got on a bike because I didn't have my car. I had flown there. I got on a bike that was in my parents' garage and I busted up the hill to my grandma's house, threw the bike down, ran in. And well, as I was approaching her house, there was this blast of light, like the most brilliant, amazing blast of light that I ever saw, and it was angelic. And I never had experience like that before. And I went in, her soul was gone. Like she was a gray body laying on the bed. And I was like, thank you for showing me and watching. I got to see her transition. That's what it was. And
I
I
love
had no idea. And that sparked me. I'm like, there's something higher. There's something there. And I always believed in God and Jesus, and my faith has always been really strong, but I always questioned, like, why do the nuns say something and we're supposed to pray this way, but then, like there was some inconsistencies with my Catholic upbringing, and I struggled with that, and I get nauseous in church, and I felt like a control paradigm
um,
um, when I was in church, and I would throw up. Like we would sit in the back of church because you never knew if it was the day I was going to throw up in church. I mean, that's how
oh,
sensitive I
talk about
am.
your higher self coming in. Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, gosh, there's something more. And I know there's something more, but life takes over. So I just started asking questions, and I started, taking classes. And when I was sparked by something, I just dove into it, and I would take 15, 20 minutes a day um, to get into it. And then I was introduced to Dr. Carolyn Porter, and she reads angels, and she read my angels, and she saw everything I've been going through and I went through. It's just amazing, amazing. And then synchronicities started coming. I started recognizing the synchronicities. I started thanking the angels and God for the synchronicities that I saw. And then once you do that, you see more. And so I just sort of built on that and started just went with the flow of what I was jazzed up about. And I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't easy. I lost friends because my interests changed.
Mhm.
My social life looks totally different than it did 10 years ago. But yeah, I'm 51 and I've never felt more energetic and engaged and connected. And yeah, it was worth all the soul searching because when you realize there's a different way, you question and then you can have shame about how you used to show up.
Mhm.
And so you have to go through those things and create a new reality. I say it's now, I say I jump timelines. And so
I feel
yeah,
that.
that's
I feel that. Yeah, because I have two. I mean, and it can be like small, it can be incremental, or it can be big. But like today, as I was telling you earlier, I know I jumped a timeline because how I'm showing up and the energy I'm feeling in my body is different than it was yesterday.
it's
And
so beautiful.
it's so cool because like I think when we follow that spark, because I get it, because I'm doing the brain entrainment stuff that I told you about. Um, I am so curious because this gentleman, Jeffrey Thompson, um, he's gone past theta brainwaves. He's like gone deeper, and I'm like, I want to play in that field because it's
Mhm.
so cool. And so for me, it's like this. I'm a former historian, so like that left brain is like really, really strong. And so like, okay, left brain, I'll let you play in science because it's going to help my right brain.
Mm.
And that's like the way that's how I negotiate that overdeveloped research part of me. It's like, okay, honey, I know you're curious. Go curious. I'm studying meridians. I'm studying Chinese five elements. I'm like studying all these things because A, it lights me up, and B, it gets both parts of my brain going.
I love it. I can just feel that you live in curiosity, and that's what I'm a champion for. I'm a champion for finding your light and connecting with that. So yeah, that's what during COVID I wrote this book, and it was like, okay, and I really didn't write it for anyone else. It's mostly for myself to remind me
I love
what the
that.
angels want me to remember and what God
Mhm.
wants me to know that I'm a divine being, and it
Yeah.
gives the simple steps to connect to your divinity and how to ask because I think it was 7 years I waited to connect to angels. Like I met Dr. Port Carolyn. She read me. I was like, oh my God, she sees me. And then I was scared. I was like, well, what if I
Mhm.
open my psyche up to things that are dangerous? What if I go crazy? What if everyone thinks I'm crazy because I say I talk to angels? Like, and there's a whole paradigm around that. And we
Mhm.
have epigenetics. Maybe one of my ancestors was involved in a witch trial or something. Like when you
But you
connect to
can,
these higher energies, you can be labeled that because
yeah,
it's the unknown. So
yeah.
it took me a while to get the courage.
Oh yeah, I get it because I've had many, many past lives where I've been burned at the stake or drawn. I actually remember I had a professor, for reasons I don't understand, uh, gave us an article on the description of drawing and quartering someone. I was physically ill, like not just like this is disgusting. I actually experienced that in one of my lifetimes because of the way my body responded to it. And I was like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry. I must have been carrying a lot of light.
You knew. Yeah.
I
And
knew.
then you could run it through. You could talk to that former self and be
Yeah,
like, okay, you're safe now. That was a long
yeah,
time ago.
yeah. And it's so like we don't get taught any of this.
Oh,
It's like we
no.
are spiritual beings having a human experience, and the layers of unpacking is it's like we have stuff in our soul's journey that like can come from parallel past lives, whatever they are. Then we have the epigenetics from our ancestors. And we're not taught that at all, but all of that affects how we show up in the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I've been doing lately, and I was guided to share this with your audience. It has to do with connecting to your light. And, there's so much coming at us right now with political unrest, war, threats of war. There's so much coming at us. I mean, it's hard to live in hope right now. It really is. So I've been spending time in the sun and like you said, grounding. So my time in the light in the sun is non-negotiable. And I open myself up to upgrades. And we are getting upgraded all the time. So we can navigate this with grace, with discernment, so we can decide what's best for our soul path and not judge anyone else. Because knowing yourself and being compassionate with what you're going through helps you see other people's journey, and there's no judgment no matter how much we're trying to be divided and labeled. So to me, we're all under the same sun. So you take your upgrades and you accept the upgrades and then share. And when I say share, I mean picture a grid, like even like the middle of my flower of life, picture that kind of grid around not just the earth, around the universe, around everything, and just send your heart light to that grid. As simple as that, in whatever color that comes in, whether it's rainbow sparkle, pink, blue, purple, whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like a serious ritual. Just send your heart love to the grid. And we can elevate these things with love and compassion. So yeah, that's what it was on my heart to share that practice. If you're guided, if you're open to it, what have you got to lose? Is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, that's so beautiful because like I know like I was saying before, like I am compelled to ground like every day. And if I don't sleep well. It's not even an option. So yesterday I was out and I'm listening to this brain entrainment thing and I was guided to go over and sit in the lounge chair and the sun was pretty bright and I just received it. I just received it. And the fact that like just that simple act of grounding, it's not only good for you, it's good for Mama Gaia. She loves it when we connect with her barefoot or lay on her. I mean, it's this synergy between us because she's a living entity just like we are. She's at a different pace, I'll say. Like trees want to talk to you. They're just slower because they don't move, so they have a different way of communicating. But all of life wants to communicate us with us. Like we're the ones that haven't figured that out yet.
Right, right. And I have an example of that. I'd been out of town for like 2 weeks and I came home and I was like, did my hummingbirds leave? Have they gone back to Costa Rica? Like, they migrate through here and I get like six of them and they know me and I know them and we're friends. And
Mhm.
I was like, oh my God, did they leave? And I was hanging out and I said to my son, I said, Blake, maybe the hummingbirds moved on. And he's like, well, maybe they did. And then all of a sudden, and then we saw how they just do their Zoom flyby. And he's like, Mom, you manifested those hummingbirds. Like, you just called them to be. And I was like, maybe I did.
Yeah.
It's just like I called them and they're my friends. And so they
Oh yeah.
responded. And how many things and I'm fascinated with people who can draw crows into their field and they become friends with the crows and
I
they have a
love
murder of
crows.
crows that follow.
So when I was living in Portland, Oregon, there's thousands of crows, and they move around neighborhoods. And they came to my neighborhood pretty often. And but one time it was like the beginning of the year, and I was working with a friend of mine who's a intuitive painter, and she said, "Well, notice what is in your field for the next 24 to 48 hours, and that is actually your message for the year." And so it was crows, and I like calling them a confab because it's not a murder. They don't murder anyone. I
No,
don't
they
like that.
don't murder.
It's like
Was it
they're just
Edgar Allan Poe's fault that he called him a murder the first time or something?
so stupid because they're not. They're like
The patriarchy, right?
right. They're divine beings and they're communicative. They're social. I mean,
They're so
I've heard them have conversations like it's the happy hour for crows. Like they'll all just like settle into their spots and like chill and have conversations. So like that weekend it was all about the crows, and I was like a little kid. I'm like, the crows are here. Oh my God, the crows are here because I get so excited. And so I ended up painting a crow, but like I looked at all these pictures of crows. I'm like, yeah, I don't like those. I was drawn to a Pacific Northwest style of crow, and that's the one I ended up painting because I'm connected with that energy of the Northwest Native tribes. I don't know, not in this iteration, but my soul
Yeah.
has. So and I love that you say friends. I love you say friends. Yesterday, I saw four turkeys, six turkey babies, so cute, six deer, one hummingbird, two turkey vultures, and stellar jay. And I was like,
Oh,
I am blown away by the gifts.
mm-hmm.
And they're all just like, they're just being, right? They're not doing anything like, hey, buddy, let me like let's go get a beer or something like that. They're not that kind of friends. But you feel their energy, and that's when they connect with you. They want to connect with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
sort of
I just send them like heart energy. Like I just get in my heart and I just say hi from my not out. Sometimes I say hi out loud, but mostly it's telepathically. I just say,
right,
"Hey, how's it going? You're so beautiful." Or I compliment them. And
right.
the same with, plants and flowers. I just tell them how amazing they are. But I
Mhm.
love that. And just shutting off all the noise and being able to do that for a few moments a day, it's priceless. It
Yeah.
truly is. So I love that I brought up crows and you're like, oh, yeah. It's so fun.
Because they're magical. I mean, all beings are magic. I had a turkey vulture sit out, like there's a tree right outside my window, and she landed, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, "You have a message for me, don't you?" And she was like, yeah, I do. Just look at my spirit animal information." I was
I was
like,
just going to say, do you use the on the internet? You search
"Oh
it
yeah,
up? Yeah, I do.
oh yeah," because I've never encountered a turkey vulture that close. I mean, we were making eye contact, and it's all about transformation. And I was like, wow, it makes sense because that's what they do. They transform something dead into something regenerating for life. And I mean, they're amazing. They're really amazing.
You really are. I mean, they're the cleanup crew.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, anytime I connect with an animal, it's like, okay, and yes, sometimes it's just an animal, but like I've had so many encounters with animals, four-legged wings and fins, as I'm guided to say, um,
Mhm.
that I don't question anymore because they're here for me to learn and to experience that oneness that we all are with them,
Right. And dispel the idea of separation. It's they're there to remind us how
right?
connected we are.
Right. Mm,
And so it is.
so it is.
Mhm.
I'm just having so much fun with you. So, you mentioned, I do want to talk about your book, but I do want to mention before we get to that, you mentioned grid work before we press record. So talk to me about that and how that came into your beingness and how can we help?
Yeah, well, the first time I heard of it was officially like I had felt that there was a grid, but then I read this book called Dissolving the Patriarchy. And
Mm,
the author of the book, Lucille, I'm terrible, but you'd have to look it up. I think it's Lucille. I can't think of her last name, but she goes around the earth and she goes to places that have been sanctified as patriarchal or energies that aren't serving our highest good. And she goes and dispels them.
wow.
And she's a rock star and
Wow.
um, she's amazing. But, I read her book and I was like, whoa. And then I was guided to do my own little thing. And not that I'm going traveling, but I feel like I'm an anchor for sharing the light. And there's some reason, like my first book chapter, of my book is called Bringing in the Light. I mean,
Okay.
and to know that, yeah. So to know that you're part of it's chapter one, calling in the light.
Mm,
So the angels told me to write that. And the picture is a grid for that part of my book.
that's beautiful.
But the thing is, I didn't consciously say, I'm going to do it like this. I was like, I need some sacred geometry, and I love sacred geometry.
Mhm.
And I picked them and I was like, yeah, that one works for that chapter. And then later I realized what they meant. So
Yeah.
I was the synchronicity of my message and what the meaning was affirming to me.
Mhm.
And it's like they're always saying, you're on the right track. Keep going. Don't be scared. Keep going. And so, yeah. So then, I just want to share the light. And a lot of times it's hard to talk to people. So that's my contribution. And, I'll
Mhm.
keep doing it until I'm guided to not. And I think it's going to be something I do the rest of my life, though. I mean, just anchor that light and tell people that they can, we're all connected. So you sharing light increases something if someone's having a bad day. And then if I'm having a bad day, I can ask for more light. And it might not bring me up right away, but it does help when you don't feel like you're alone. Because
Mhm.
sometimes everyone feels isolated at times.
Right. Oh, I understand that completely because I, like you as a child, I was very spiritual and I disconnected when we had a family. Yeah, my grandfather died and then everybody like changed their personalities through the crisis and then settled into those changed personalities and didn't change again. And so there was a lot of trauma from that. And so I was like, okay, I can still be spiritual, but like you, I'm crazy right now. So I don't, and I grew up in Connecticut. So in the 70s and 80s. So I'm about your age. And
Hmm.
like it didn't feel safe to do that then. And I didn't have the tools I
Yeah.
have now. So like I get that fear of admitting that you're more than this third dimensional construct. And it's so cool when you realize you're more than that.
Mhm. Yeah, it's liberating. You're like, this is just my 3D. This is a 3D situation. I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna
Right.
get
You
through
are. And
this.
we're always going to be like, for last year I went to Orcas Island and I had $200 in my checking account. I drove up there. I was gifted funds. I was gifted a place to stay within 24 hours of being on the island. And I was there for 2 months for some magical, really magical experiences. That was the cliff I jumped off because I usually know where I'm going to go or I have a place to stay. I had no idea, but I was taken care of. Right
Mm.
now, in this moment, I'm going to be not, I'm not. The perception is, the 3D perception is, the house is selling in 3 weeks. So, or it's getting sold tomorrow, and within 3 weeks, we have 3 weeks to move out. I have no idea where I'm going. None. It doesn't matter because I know I'm taken care of. It's like there's no logic to that, but it's the trust and the belief and the faith that I know that I'm going to be guided to wherever I'm supposed to be, and it's okay. Like it's fun, it's play. It's like let me see all the possibilities. I have so many possibilities out there, and I'm seeing them like, it's like I'm not focused on any, so I have that diffuse vision in quantum physics, right? So like unless you
Hmm.
look at the dark, you have many possibilities. So like I'm noticing some are like starting to fade, and that's okay because I'm still in diffused state. And oh, I heard today, I'll know what I know. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to surrender to that and be present. And if I'm not present, I'll find something to make me present because I used to distract myself a lot because that's what we do as empaths that are
Hmm.
overwhelmed. I don't have the capacity to distract myself anymore.
Yeah, like
It's
I'll
just,
I'll stay super busy. I'm a generator. I'll just be busy, busy, busy and ignoring all these signs. And then I'm like, wait a minute. And it happens less and less now. I love that. You're going to end up
Mhm.
somewhere near beautiful trees, maybe a national forest close by. Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to follow your podcast to see where you are.
You do.
If they keep up. I gotta find out.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sort of doing the same thing because once my boys move out, I can move wherever. Like, well, my
yeah.
husband needs to retire, but I just go on. I even asked ChatGPT, like, small towns with large yards because I want to have an orchard. I know I want to have an orchard in my yard, but my husband doesn't want to live out in the country. He feels more secure like with people around him. But I'm like, well, then I just need a huge freaking yard and I need a
Right.
greenhouse and
5 acres sounds good.
yeah, so I just asked ChatGPT and they came up with like six different towns. And I was like, well, wait, I don't want that
Really?
big. I want smaller. And then you can even use that kind of thing to divine um
Oh, that's
your
fascinating.
I was just having fun. I went on Google Maps and checked them all out. And my husband's like, what is she doing? And what am I doing? Because he's a Taurus. He's very like set in his
Oh,
ways,
yeah,
like same breakfast every morning. He's my rock. Like, thank God I have him because I'm everywhere.
right.
I eat meals at weird times. I don't care. I just go with the flow.
I love that. So how has it been? Because my poor Taurus, he like we had a 16-year relationship and I expanded too fast, too much, too
Yes,
fast, and
I
he had
hear
to end it
you. Mm, yeah, we have
because
to
it's a
work on it. And
yeah,
he's
it's
had to learn
scary.
not to, yeah, he's had to learn not to judge me because I can feel the
Mm,
judgment. And then I'm just like,
yeah.
that's like oil and water when he judges me. Like, oh, this is not going to
Hmm.
go well.
Right.
So
No,
we've
I
had to
get it.
have
I
a,
get it. And
yeah.
I'm an Aquarius, so like I'm I'm up for like exploring. I love the exploring, like anything that I can do that's going to expand my curiosity. Um, I love doing, and I love different. I love playing. I don't want the same thing all the time. I mean, the chai is the only thing that I have daily, but like everything else is play. Like what is going to be the play? And that's very disconcerting to an earth sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's about safety, security, and I just started to appreciate that I can live the life I can live because he has his gifts. Um,
Yeah.
but he was we had a lot of heart to heart. So I can totally tell where you're coming from with that. And his fear of change is probably why he stuck with me because he's like, well, what am I gonna get if Julie leaves? It's,
That's so funny.
uh,
Yeah,
it's so good.
it's such a dance because I remember at one point he said to me, "Stop growing, I can't keep up." But my soul wants me to grow. Like I
Yeah, I
can't
mean
tell myself,
that's
"Oh, I'm sorry, we're done." I mean, I can say that, but like I can't. You know what I mean? Like there's a it's a compelling nature. It's like a non-negotiable must continue on this quest to remember who I am.
yeah,
And
I see that.
it's not for the faint of heart, I will say that. Because I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. But that light that you carry when you uncover all of those subconscious beliefs and programs that hold you back from that divine spark that you are, it's magical.
It is. So I'm a champion. Anybody, I'm here to support anybody who wants to go there, and I honor the vulnerability and the bravery it takes. So
Mhm.
yeah. It's definitely
I
a
love
sisterhood, even if you're a guy, it's this divine
it.
feminine energy that anyone can tap into, no matter what your birth gender is. I mean, we're everything. We're masculine and feminine, but this femininity of this compassion and this understanding of your divinity is it's feminine. I know that much.
It is, and it's this gentle energy of acceptance and receiving. Um, and that's something we haven't really felt in a long time on the earth.
I know. And that's why it breaks my
Yeah.
heart when people they want to change how they were born. I want to hold them and tell them that they're perfect and they're going through these questions for a reason. And it's a normal struggle. It's not to be erased or changed because everyone feels out of their skin.
Oh
And these
yeah.
surgeries are
I didn't
breaking
even
my heart.
I didn't recognize myself in the mirror for the first like 8 or 9 years of my life. I just kept looking like, what is that? I don't know this body. Like, and it was a real, like, I didn't look at myself in the mirror for a long time because I didn't know who was looking back at me. That reflection. I was like, that, why this, like, it was really a curiosity and I didn't understand it. I didn't have anyone to talk to about it because it didn't, but like, I literally chose this body, right? We chose to come in this body,
Mhm.
and what a gift it is. Like, is it perfect? Not by any stretch, but it's the body I chose. And to love and honor it amidst the confusion and amidst all the programs that are coming out and the distortions and the agendas that are forcing people to question things they don't need to question because their soul
Right.
already
It's
knows
like
what.
a yeah, it's like a big distraction from what we're really
Mhm.
here to do. Yeah,
Right,
I hear
right.
you.
And I have love and compassion for everyone. There's no judgment,
Mm.
no judgment. But it's a deeper call to like sit with your soul. Like, are you responding? Are you reacting from a trauma rather than responding from a place of self-compassion?
And I mean, that's humanity. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't happen through one generation. This is patterns that are needing to be healed,
Mm-hmm.
that, that child didn't feel. And I'm not blaming parents. I'm not blaming anybody.
No,
I'm
there's
just
nothing to
saying
blame.
this is a condition of humanity that people
Mhm.
aren't feeling accepted and
Right,
loved.
right.
And yeah, so be the change you want to see. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
because it's like within us, amidst all of the programs and traumas and beliefs that we have, you go deep enough, you will find that unconditional love resides within your heart. And it's not
Mhm.
because you are source. Each one of us is source because we're an aspect of source that came incarnated into this beingness to experience what we're experiencing. We're not separate from that. So that dwells within us, and that unconditional love is so profound, deep, and heart opening. And when we allow ourselves to slow down, face our addictions, which are merely masks of looking for love, you're distracted from the pain of separation. That is an addiction. It's the separation anxiety that is the illusion that we're waking up from.
I feel that in
Thank you
my
for
soul as you say it. Thank you. Thank you for that message, for that
yeah, like,
channel.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I know that, I used to drink a couple glasses of wine every night, and then I started to question, and is this serving me? And like,
mm,
no, I mean, I don't want to miss. I don't want to dull this experience.
mm,
And no judgment if
oh,
that's good, because my body was just saying no. And just to look at if, maybe it was social anxiety, I think, because I so want to connect and feel part of something
right.
that, that social lubrication of a couple drinks, it's just sort of like it's a program, and you go to universities, and that's just what's done. And so when people repeat the same actions over and over, it's part of that. I call it a portal because I
Mm,
can feel it on some campuses. Like I've been visiting with my son some schools, and I was like, whoa, we just entered like this portal where there's
oh,
this energy of consumption
mm,
and escape.
yeah.
So, and then you notice there's changes happening too, but I don't know, maybe that's what I need to do is send clearing to those
Mm,
portals, to the
yeah.
university portals, or there's a lot of funding for schools that the funding, I understand, is not from the US, that it's some kind of agenda. there's other countries funding universities so
Interesting.
they can impose an agenda on
Fascinating.
the curriculum. And there, and you could really tell in COVID because of certain behaviors. And I don't want to go into all of it, but
Right.
there's there's some of that were, all this stuff is being, I think COVID was just a big detox. It was just like
Yeah.
Mother Gaia was throwing up, saying, we got to figure this out. We got to turn things
Yeah.
inside out. We
Yeah.
got to
Oh, I got
empty the
chills for that. Yeah.
drawers. And we got to repack the drawers. Like, figure this
Mhm.
stuff out, people, because we couldn't continue on our path that we
Right.
were on. And a
Right.
lot of things are being revealed more and more. And so I adore, but yeah, so I think that's what's coming to me as we talk is that, and you said the substance and addictions and
Mhm.
they're distractions to keep us. And when I drink, I feel like some entity can get in. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a different person.
Mm.
And I know people who are alcoholics that just make bad choices when they start drinking, more than a few drinks. And you're like, well, that guy would never say that if he's the most kind,
Right.
sweet person, but he throws back a case of, 12 pack of beer and he says inappropriate things, and like that's not him.
Right. No, I agree.
I
Like
feel
I remember back when I was living down in California, um, I went to this really awesome little um combination lunch slash amazing metaphysical shop. It was really cute. It was a tiny place in Wairika, California. And the woman who ordered supplements and bulk spices became friends with me. And she told me that her son had an overdose and came back as a woman's energy, had never experienced any sign of feminine energy. But now I think he wants to be called something like Susie or Cindy or something like that, and is dressing like a woman, growing his hair out. And his sisters are like, what is going on? And she's like, oh, I love him and accept him, her. Um, but that's not even his energy. It's a different person that's in his body now, or a different soul
what do they
that's
call that? It's like a step in, I think they call it. There's a name
is a
for it.
walk-in.
A walk-in.
But I don't think this was like the walk-ins I've talked to, because I've talked to a couple of them, is a higher frequency. Okay. So I don't feel that this is a higher frequency one. This is like he left and somebody else was like, ooh, I want to come back in a body. And so like that's what's happening now, because like we're lifting the veil more and more. We have the opportunity to become more and more responsible with our awareness and our discipline, because like I actually got an attack this week and it came out of nowhere, and it was because I needed the lesson that I cannot make a decision unless I'm fully present. That was
Mm.
the lesson. I'm like, wow, I didn't get mad at myself. I didn't get triggered. I was just like, oh, I see that now. Oh, shoot. I didn't know I was, wow. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
How
source.
did you, I'm just curious, I mean, how did you know it was an attack? It was like you felt
Because
your
of the
energy
energy of
or
it. It was
mm,
what it was essentially I was kind of getting bullied, but I was taking two classes. So I was being present. I was asking myself like, hey, is this right? And I kept not getting a clear answer. And then I allowed myself to feel that bully energy and just make decisions that weren't for my highest, unfolding. But it
hmm.
was because I saw how much I need to be present so I can be discerning. Because I was like 50% discerning. I wasn't 100% present. I wasn't 100% discerning. So I got this lower frequency come in and say, ooh, we're gonna like ha ha ha,
Mess with you.
yeah,
Yeah.
mess with me. And then I was like, this doesn't feel like when I was complete with the class and I was able to get present again, I'm like, wow, none of that felt right. Wait a minute. Like that kind of a snap out of it. And I was like, wow, what a cool lesson. Because when we're not aware, and like in the gene keys, my purpose in life is to be present, which is laughable because I haven't even, like I was a kid and I completely lost it. Now I'm like, okay, I get to be present again.
Yeah.
So like it's amusing to me that that's the message coming through is like, no, 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 you can't, like, why I don't know where I'm going yet? Because it doesn't matter. It's out there. I have to be here. And it's really interesting because like when we hear that inner guidance, it's really clear.
Mm, I love that. That's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that because I've often wondered, I felt like I was being attacked, but I didn't know.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's real. And I follow Gene Keys too. That's so amazing.
Yeah, I saw the desire, like one of mine is 30, so that's the top one. And I just
Mm-hmm.
listened to it again. I listened to it a couple years ago and I didn't really get into it. So I just like three people showed up with me in my life to share me. Oh yeah, I'm Gene Codes, blah blah blah. I'm like, I gotta relook at this. So
Yeah.
Gene Code 30 is about desire or repressing desires. And I'm like, oh no, I'm good with that. Right? I'm like past the desire thing, right? Ha 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 ha. Because I
What's the
don't,
shadow of desire? Do you remember?
oh, it's the repression of desires.
It's repression.
It's
And then the
repression.
gift is
And
what's
then the ultimate is
mm,
devotion.
devotion.
And
That's beautiful.
yeah, it is. It is. And like I see aspects where I'm in devotion and that's beautiful. And I thought I was like in the middle. I don't remember what the middle one is, but like when I saw that I was repressing desires, I was like, I didn't. And then like they all popped out. I was like, oh my goodness, like I didn't know I was repressing that much because I didn't see it until I
Yeah,
tuned until my subconscious, like I listened to the chapter before I went to bed, and then all of a sudden, like all of it comes up. I'm like, oh geez, I
no, it's
didn't
so
know.
good.
Yeah.
I haven't picked it up in a month, I'm not gonna lie, but I really get into it if I'm struggling and I'll like find my emotion in the gene key and then I find that shadow emotion and then I find the gift in the city. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to know. But yeah, but the thing is I'm 62, so I'm not supposed to know everything. I'm supposed to trust with my intuition and impeccability.
Hmm.
And I like to rush and just get things done instead of being impeccable. And and it goes along with yours as the discernment of being completely present to hear, that get your
Yeah.
intuition
Oh
because you're
yeah.
not supposed to know. It's not book knowledge. It's it's so
Yeah, and it's
fun.
so intuitive, and it's like, I get it. Like presence is like it's been the biggest practice I've had in my life is to be present. And so I'm amused that that's like, of course, that's like the everything about like it's all about about presence. I'm like, of course it is. Of course it is. And it's just like one tool that I get to understand how I show up in the world better so I can like refine myself more and more.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful.
So I know that you have another podcast, but I do want to talk a little bit about your book because I'm very curious about like all the things that you shared because it feels like it's just a beautiful vibration.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's like we've talked a lot about it. It's three parts. The first part's finding and knowing your light. So there's exercises in there to find your joy.
Awesome.
And I have lists. Um, there's one I just opened. It says dream life, and you have values, and you put your values in the star.
Oh, I love that.
So it's like interactive, and then everything that I suggest, there's a devotion to ask the angels for insight. Because that was my biggest hurdle. I was like, I don't know how to ask.
Hmm.
So I give the words to ask. And then the second part is taking care of your vessel, like your diet, your environment. I get into some feng shui, I get into some self-forgiveness. Like it's all about everything around you, what you're letting in,
Hmm.
what you're exposing yourself to. And there's exercises around that to raise awareness and consciousness.
That's
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, and there's even like word searches. It's really fun. And then the last part is your relationships and conflict resolution. I have it's a decision tree when you get in a fight with somebody you care about. And it's like, can you talk to them calmly? Yes, no. And if like you can't, like go take a walk or take a bath or a
I
shower,
love that.
like until you can say
Mhm.
that you like that person. You
That's
don't even
beautiful.
so it's really like I said, I was guided and
Yeah,
I'm honored to share it. And it's an audiobook also. I
that's awesome.
released that last summer, the audiobook. It's available on Kindle. I think you can get the audiobook for free if you want to do a trial membership. If you know, you can always do that. But yeah, it's been really wonderful to share in that way. And I always wondered, I thought I was going to write a children's book. Like I always knew I was going to write a book. I didn't realize I was going to write a book about angels.
That's awesome.
So,
That is so awesome. Yeah, and just having that practical, like, it's not that intimidating guidebook to help you, like, because we all have it, but
mhm.
like taking that first step. I talked to somebody a few weeks ago whose dachshund died, and he's very, very introverted. And he said to me really quietly, "Was like, I think she came and visited me." And I said, "Of course she did, honey. She loves you." And he said, "Is that normal?" I was like, "That's like, I'm not the person to ask about normal, but yes, is it okay? Yes, it's totally fine. It is normal.
Yeah.
It is normal. Like, what isn't normal is that we've forgotten it."
Right. And that was my whole thing is remember your divinity. Remember you have all the answers. It's just going inside and looking.
Mhm.
And yeah, so that's my offering and I just feel so honored to have that and it's given me a platform to be on podcasts and to share my message. So it's just been a blessing. It's such a blessing all around. Thanks for asking.
You're so welcome, honey. And then I'm going to ask you that final question so you can like trot out if you need to. How do people find you?
Oh, I have a website called lifeofloveandjoy.com.
Awesome.
And that's available. And then I also have a YouTube channel, Julie Hilsen, Life of Love. So yeah, and I'm really having fun doing that. You can connect with me on social. I'm active on Instagram. But I'm finding that it's sucking my attention. So I'm like I'm only letting myself go to Instagram like 5 minutes a day because I'm like otherwise I'm just like too many cat videos, too
I completely understand that.
Oh, I
Oh,
dropped
honey.
my I dropped my earbud.
Oh, thank you so, so much for your time and sharing this conversation with me. I am so grateful for who you are and all of the work you do in the world, my sister. Thank you, thank you.
Oh, it goes back to you, my sister. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.